Gaining proper perspective can pay tremendous dividends, especially when a life pivot occurs and a change in circumstances is necessary. Travis Swanson spent parts of 5 seasons along the offensive line for both the Detroit Lions and the Miami Dolphins. During his time in the trenches and in the NFL, he grew to appreciate the camaraderie and companionship between him and his offensive line brethren, but he also knew that his life after football had to take center stage and top priority. He joined me this week to discuss his time with the Lions in the NFL, his life after football, his family, his love of the University of Arkansas, and so much more. I'm Kevin McShann. Let's have this conversation. Our discussion began with Swanson reminiscing about his time in the Motor City and his favorite memory while playing for the Lions. So, Travis, if you're ready, I'll welcome you to the show, and we're excited to learn all about your former life in the NFL and what's keeping you busy after football. Thanks so much for being here, and great to see you this afternoon.
Great to see you. Appreciate you having me on.
So,
oh wow, that is. I mean, how much time do we have? For the
as much
Lions,
time as you have.
Lions, a lot of things come to mind. I don't know. The first thing that comes to mind is my rookie year when we went to London. It was 2014, and we were playing the Falcons, and I think we were down 21-0 at halftime. And then we went in the locker room and made some adjustments and came back out on the field and eventually won the game off a Matt Prater last second field goal. But the funniest part about it is since we were in London, you look them in the stands and all the fans there had just different colored jerseys on, which is a big mix of colored jerseys. And they really only cheered when the kickers would come out to do their thing. Which was it was just constant yelling all the time, like almost like it was a soccer match until the kickers came out. Then the place would just erupt. So we go out there and Prater goes to kick his first one. He kicks it and misses it. But come to find out it was a delay of game. So they threw a penalty. We got to re-kick it. So then we back it up 5 yards. He re-kicks it, makes it. We win the game. We're all going crazy. And it was funny because you would look up in the stands and everyone else would be like, they just didn't understand exactly why he got another shot to kick the ball, and they were all extremely confused. It was hilarious. But no, I've had a great memories in Detroit. That was the first one that stuck out. The NFL in general, my best memory from my career was probably my last year. The last win I ever got when I was down in Miami was the Miracle Miami, or the Miami Miracle, whoever you ask and however they say it. That was probably by far the coolest memory I have in my 5 years.
And tell me, what was your favorite part about living in the state of Michigan?
Oh, geez. I mean, we didn't really know what to expect at all when we first got there. And I grew up in Texas, went to school in Arkansas, so I've lived in different states before. My wife she just lived in Arkansas her whole life and that was it. So when we got the call and got drafted, she really didn't know what to expect, but we both didn't know what to expect. And from the moment that we got up there and sort of got our bearings and figured out exactly kind of where we were going to live and all that stuff, we loved every moment of it, honestly. We didn't know anything about Detroit going into it. But by the time that our time there was done, we had fell in love with it so much. That's the first place that we, you know, that we lived when we just got married. It's where our marriage just kind of grew in the early phases and whatnot. Um, so when we think about Michigan, we always want to come back, and we'd love to come visit at some point and just kind of see the area again because we miss it so much. And I mean, you can't beat summers in Michigan. You can't do it. It's just so nice. Um, so we miss a lot of different things about the state.
And you had mentioned before, remembering your time playing in London. Do you miss it all this season because of the coronavirus at all, that they're not playing overseas?
I think they definitely got to be smart. This coronavirus and then 2020 in general, just what it is, it's been tough. It's been tough on everybody. Uh, Logistically, I think the NFL they're trying to do everything that they can to keep it safe for everyone involved. And then I know obviously when you go outside of just sports in general, everyone has been affected by this in some way, shape, or form, and to some degree. So I think it's been tough on people, definitely. Even if we're just talking outside of sports, like I said, I just think you know not only the NFL but just people in general. You got to find what is your new routine, what's your new normal, how can you be as safe as possible.
And I'm just curious, I would be remiss if I didn't ask you, what do you think about this year's version of the Lions?
I think they're kind of having a tough time right now, and I think it's hard to kind of pinpoint exactly what area is struggling. I think some of the teams that I was a part of there, especially like that 2015 team, we had a pretty hard stretch in the first half of that season, and this reminds me a lot of kind of that team. And it was really, you couldn't pinpoint exactly one area or one phase of the game that it was. It was just kind of these popcorn sort of scenarios where one play it was this person who didn't necessarily do the right thing or do their job right. And then you go to the next mistake or the next play, and it would have been this person over here at this position. So it's really just kind of all over the place. They got a really good roster. I know they got a lot of talent on that roster. I still know a handful of guys on the team, and I still talk with them all the time, check in with them, make sure they're staying healthy, make sure they're doing good. And I'm obviously watching on Sundays when they're playing. They got a lot of talent. I really hope that they can somehow just find a way to kind of bring it together and have all phases complement each other.
You and me both, buddy. And I also
Mm-hmm.
know that you are still in close contact with the University of Arkansas, and they're actually doing kind of well this year. So tell me about how proud you are about how well your Razorbacks are doing this season.
Oh, so proud. I mean, and I personally know Coach Pittman. He was my offensive line coach my last year at Arkansas, and so I got 1 year with him. I wish I would have had 5. The guy he's unbelievable. I don't know. I'll say this: you ever get the chance to meet him or talk with him, please do it, just because he's an unbelievable person. I'm very happy to see the success that they've had, just because Arkansas it's a proud program. There's been some hiccups here recently, the past few years that they're trying to get over, and so just to kind of see them come out and do what they've done this year has been pretty cool to see.
And tell me, how do you think offensive line play has changed since you've left the league at all?
It's kind of hard to pinpoint just because I think every team has their own philosophy. Every team has what they believe in and sort of the build of linemen that they try to look at. In terms of how it's changed, I don't necessarily think it's changed a whole lot in the NFL. I think it's really drastically changed in college, which then I think a lot of these NFL personnel people are recognizing the change that's happening in college, and that it's a very different game than what it was even when I was playing in college, which was just a handful of years ago. Um, a lot of it is this now spread style, check with me at the line, where you're looking to the sideline and coaches are holding up big cards or whatever, kind of telling you what to do. And that doesn't necessarily translate a whole lot to the NFL. Now, everyone's system's different. There might be some actual cerebral thinking involved in some of them. And I think just NFL personnel people are recognizing that. So I think there's a premium now on the linemen that are in the NFL that have a little bit of veteran status to them, just because what is coming into the NFL, there's still really good offensive linemen coming in every year. I think that number is just thinning out more and more as time goes on with this change that we're seeing.
And tell me, since you've transitioned from playing football, how's that gone for you? I know that you now work at Advantage Financial, helping athletes, coaches, and other people sort of build their own wealth. So I'm wondering, how's your transition from football going, and how did you sort of plan the next phase of your life once you played your last football game?
Yeah, I mean, to try to give you a real short, condensed version of sort of what I'm doing now, I finished my 5th year, my last year in Miami, and at the time I didn't realize that was going to be my last year. But 2 weeks after the season, my wife gave birth to our first little girl, and it was kind of the moment I saw her. A lot of things in me changed, a lot of priorities changed, and I reevaluated just kind of where I was in life at that point, and a lot of the things I was thinking really just kept leading me back to retiring and moving on. And a lot of that had to do with just seeing her, seeing my family, and just being at this sort of fork in the road in my career at that point. So we were able to kind of do that just because of the financial structure and the things that we kind of put in place early on. And so I went to go, and I'm now working for the same company that sort of helps us along that way early on in the NFL. And yeah, like you said, working with a lot of athletes, working with a lot of people not in the athletic industry, doctors, and then just everyday people of that nature, just trying to help them sort of bridge the gap between where they are and where they want to go. Because most people can tell you what they want in life from a sort of a financial standpoint and things they want to do, but they can't necessarily define it, and they can't figure out exactly how to get there. So a lot of what we do is just helping people kind of take all these pieces to the puzzle and figure the puzzle out, which has been really, really rewarding so far. I'm enjoying it.
And tell me, what would be your message to athletes about properly managing their finances while they're playing and versus after they finish playing as well? What a message would you want to get out there about that topic?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think you definitely need to be smart, especially on the front end and really throughout your entire career, because this is something that, when you're talking about NFL guys in general, the average career is 3 years, which is not a very long time. So you need to go into it with the mindset of, this is only going to last me, this career is only going to last me 3 years. So I got a whole lot of life ahead of me. There's a lot of things that I want to be able to do. And you're given this opportunity at such a young age that if you can get a little structure in place, get a plan in place, and see how this can kind of grow into whatever you want it to go, then it can be something special. And that, a lot of guys, regardless of how short or long they do play, you're going to go through a phase as soon as you're done where you're going to have some, hard times trying to find your identity and who am I, who do I want to be? And you could think that you have, the world figured out beforehand, but then when that moment does come and you do decide to kind of walk away from the game, whether it's on your terms or not, you're going to go through some hard times. And like I said, trying to figure out everything. So you need to be smart, definitely. I would say, do your P's and Q's and trying to vet whoever you're talking to, because there's a lot of people out there that try to prey on athletes and just people in general from a financial standpoint that don't necessarily have their best interest at heart, but more of whoever the advisor is their personal interest, which we've seen a handful of those situations so far and has been very unfortunate. We've had to come in and kind of try to untangle some knots that other people did. So I would just make a long story short, just make sure you're being more conservative than not, especially on the front end of your career.
Yeah, and one final football question for you. And what do you think people should know about what happens in offensive line rooms that the public doesn't necessarily get a chance to see that you would want to share with our audience today?
Yeah, I think it's a unique thing. Very, very unique. You have a lot of just you have a group of guys in there that typically don't get recognition for anything, and if they do, it's negative because the only stats that alignment have are negative. And you have to be very like-minded, and there has to be a very certain kind of individual that can do that job because you have to go into it knowing really if people know my name more times than not, it's not a very good thing. So whenever you go into an O line room and those doors shut and it's just the O lineman in there, it's a really tight knit group, and you have a lot of conversations amongst each other that a lot of them are great. A lot of them are hard conversations. Um, those guys, all the O line rooms that I've ever been a part of, college, professionally, I'm still very close with a lot of those guys in those rooms just because we were all we thought the same way, we viewed things the same way, and it was awesome. So I'm very close, and so I know a lot of people know how close O line rooms are, but I want to emphasize like it is a very, very tight knit group.
And my final question for you is, when you're not working, what do you like to do for fun? I know that you mentioned your wife and your family. Certainly that will play a big role in what you like to do outside of work, but what do you like to do for fun?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, wife, family, being the family man is first and foremost for me. I taught myself how to play guitar in sixth grade. Um, have kind of kept that going throughout the years. It's kind of died off here recently, just trying to relocate and get everything up and going again. But if I had to say one thing that is kind of my decompressor, it would be music. Um, so outside of work and family and stuff, that would probably be my go-to.
Fantastic. Hey, Travis, I want to thank you for spending a few minutes with me to tell me all about your transition to football, your life outside of football, and what's keeping you busy today. Really enjoyed the discussion, and I want to thank you for being here this afternoon. It's most appreciated.
Yeah, Kevin, thanks for having me on.
Fantastic.